Great. Here's Chapter 7 of Heaven's Foundation, Fist of the Seven Thrones, written using all compiled character lore, world building, and previous narrative events. This chapter continues directly from the events of Chapter 6. Chapter 7. The Thorn Beneath the Halo. The cheering still echoed through the night as Ren Kazami stormed out of the ring, his breath heavy with frustration and disbelief. The crystalline blue aura that once cloaked him had flickered out, leaving nothing but the raw sting of humiliation gnawing at his pride. The tournament arena, an ancient circular amphitheater embedded in the stonework of Eastern Floor 1, still trembled from the crowd's astonishment. A commoner? Defeating a Knight of Seven? Zakuro Kenshi hadn't even stayed to celebrate. That irritated Ren more than the loss itself. He didn't even look back, like it was just another brawl in the alleyways. Behind him, Baronocchi Anto stood at the shadowed mouth of a corridor leading to the inner knight's barracks. His crimson eyes watched Ren wordlessly, arms folded, posture unmoved. Ren snapped. "Say it." Baron's expression remained unreadable. "I have nothing to say." The silence hit harder than criticism. "He didn't win because he's better," Ren spat, yanking his gauntlets off. "He won because I underestimated him. That street brat. He doesn't even know half the forms. He just moved, like an animal backed into a corner." Baronocchi stepped into the torchlight, gaze cool. "And yet, you lost." Ren stiffened, his jaw clenched, and for a moment the temperature around him dropped. A sheen of frost gathered along his sleeve. Baronocchi walked past him without further comment. Meanwhile, backstage Infirmary Hall, Zakuro winced as Emi gently dabbed at the bruise on his temple. May stood by the door, daggers still strapped to her hips, casting wary glances every few seconds. "I'm fine," Zakuro muttered, waving Emi's hand away. "I've had worse from a bucket falling off a roof." "You just fought a top-ranked knight and barely dodged a frozen shin to the throat," May said. "Let the healer do her job." Emi smiled faintly and hummed a soft tune as she continued tending to the wounds. "That guy, he wasn't slow," Zakuro said, half to himself. "He was holding back at first, but when I entered Max, I saw the real him, like a tide about to crash. I got lucky." "No," Emi said quietly, her hand pausing. "You changed. In the middle of the fight, your eyes, something shifted." Zakuro tilted his head. "Like how?" She hesitated. "Like you weren't just reacting. You knew." He thought back to the moment when the yellow aura had surged from his body, lightning dancing along his limbs. The voice in his mind, Daigo's voice, reminding him to see, not just look. Castle Colony, Inner District Council Hall. Ayumi Tachibana stood before a massive projection of the tournament brackets, arms folded, violet eyes narrowed behind her glasses. Baronocchi approached, footsteps soft as always. "He's not just raw talent," she said before he could speak. "He's adapting at a rate I didn't predict." "Your instincts were correct." Baronocchi nodded once. "He doesn't fight with form. He fights with need." "And what happens," Ayumi murmured, "when instinct becomes purpose?" From the shadows of the hall, Sister Vesca watched through a mirrored charm etched into the ceiling stone. Her black-violet aura barely flickered, invisible to all but the most trained senses. A low, humorless chuckle escaped her lips. "So the pawn awakens." That same night, rooftops of Floor 1. Zakuro sat cross-legged on the edge of a roof, looking down at the streets below. Lanterns flickered as families gathered around food stalls and storytellers. Life moved on, but something inside him didn't. He felt different. Not just stronger, sharper, like something dormant had shifted inside his blood and bones. The air stirred behind him, and Daigo stepped out of the dark, cloak rustling with a whisper. "You feel it now, don't you?" the old man said. Zakuro turned. "I felt like I could see him before he moved. Like time slowed." Daigo smiled. "You didn't slow time. You caught up to it." He sat beside him, drawing his gourd from his side and taking a long sip. "You've taken your first step into the realm of the awakened." Zakuro's eyes narrowed. "Awakened?" Daigo nodded. "Your max mode isn't just power. It's connection to your spirit, your body, and the flow between them. Most warriors train a lifetime to get a glimpse of that state. You hit it in a street brawl." Zakuro looked back at the streets. "So what happens now?" Daigo's smile faded. "Now the world changes." End of Chapter 7. Would you like to continue directly into Chapter 8 next? I can also expand scenes or add interludes, such as Baron's private reflection or Ayumi's hidden report to the royal court, if you'd like to explore other character perspectives between chapters. Great. Picking up right where Chapter 7 left off. Here's Chapter 8 of Heaven's Foundation, Fist of the Seven Thrones, written in full light novel style using all compiled world building, character details, and tone. Let's dive in. Chapter 8 Beneath the Surface, Behind the Eyes. The moon loomed heavy over floor 1, its pale light cutting between the rusted rooftops and makeshift bridges of the lower district. Even at this late hour, the slums did not sleep. They shifted, whispered, trembled, alive in ways the upper levels could never understand. In the shadows of broken towers and shattered pride, dreams clawed upward with bloodied fingers. Zakuro Kenshi lay flat on the cold rooftop of the old glassworks, staring up at the sky as if the stars might answer him back. His arms were folded behind his head, the stone beneath him biting into his shoulder blades through his thin shirt. Every bruise and scab from the sparring match earlier still pulsed, but none of it hurt more than the silence Daigo left behind. "He's not coming back tonight, huh?" Zakuro's voice was little more than a breath, eaten by the wind. He turned his head to the side. Beside him sat the old wooden training post they'd dragged up to the roof together, still wrapped in tattered cloth and splintered rope. The last thing Daigo had said to him was, "You'll know you're ready when this thing breaks in half from instinct alone." He clenched his fists. Below, life moved. Vendors called half-heartedly to nighttime wanderers. Fighters from the unofficial circuits dragged their broken bodies home. Emmy and May had returned to their corner near the soup stalls. Zakuro saw them earlier, Emmy with her patient smile, May always scanning the crowd for trouble. He'd wanted to speak to them again. Apologize, maybe. Or ask how they fought with such confidence. But another part of him was afraid. Afraid they saw what Ren saw. Someone too slow, too wild, too far behind. And Ren? Ren hadn't spoken to anyone since their fight. Zakuro's gaze drifted back to the stars. Everyone's looking up, but no one tells you how far you can fall from that high. Far above floor 1, in the spire chambers of floor 9, the Western region's royal court sat in enforced silence. Ayumi Tachibana knelt alone before a grand, circular table lit by lanterns shaped like lotus blossoms. Behind her, black-veiled guards stood like statues, unmoving, unbreathing. They didn't speak unless told to. And tonight, no one wanted words, only results. The figure across the table finally spoke, his voice dry and measured. "So, the orphan from the slums defeated a knight." Ayumi didn't lift her gaze, but her voice carried strength. "Yes, and the knight, Ren Kazami, was forced into max mode to escape the bout. Zakuro Kenshi displayed reactive memory, instinctive pressure point strikes, and subconscious aura acceleration. It may be he has accessed the outer edges of absolute intellect." A long silence, then a chuckle. "And Daigo? He continues to conceal his aura type, even from me." "Dangerous," the voice said. "Keep watching the boy." Ayumi's glasses glinted in the lantern light. "Of course I will." But what she didn't say, what she couldn't say, was the moment she saw Zakuro's movements, she felt a familiar flicker. Not from the slums, not from any peasant bloodline. No, it was something from long ago, something sealed. And if it was true, then Heaven's foundation itself might tremble. The next morning broke with wet wind and noise. Floor 1's central plaza was alive with energy. Tents were being raised, chalk outlines painted across the cobbled fighting pits. Musicians tuned bamboo flutes and drummers tested war rhythms. Today was the first open round of the sanctioned regionals, every low-floor fighter hoping to climb the tower legally, earn recognition, and, just maybe, be seen by one of the 7 knights had to enter here. Victory didn't just mean food and coin. It meant status, training, a chance to escape. Zakuro stood in line at Pit 12, bouncing lightly on his heels. His clothes were new, well, new to him. A fitted dark ink GI stitched with padded elbows and a rope belt that still smelled faintly of incense. Daigo had left them folded neatly next to a bowl of still warm porridge that morning. No note, no words, just trust. Beside him, Ren Kazami stood quietly, arms folded, expression unreadable. He wore his signature weighted boots and gauntlets, but otherwise looked like he hadn't slept. "Hey," Zakuro said, scratching his head. "About before." Ren didn't look at him. "Just fight your match." Then he walked off. Zakuro sighed. Yeah, I figured. Elsewhere, in the shadows between tents, Emmy and May finished wrapping their hands. Their registration was forged, their entry fees scraped together from favors and stolen coin. May narrowed her eyes across the plaza. He's here, Emmy nodded. I saw him. You think he'll talk to us? I think he's trying to prove something to himself first. May grunted, slinging her daggers into place behind her back. We all are. At the highest level of the plaza, cloaked and unseen, Baronocchi Anto watched the fighters assemble. He could feel it, that rising tension in the air before a clash. His red aura tingled under his skin. Beside him stood Ayumi, expression neutral. Why are you here? She asked quietly. Baronocchi didn't blink. I want to see how high he can climb. Zakuro? All of them. She adjusted her glasses. You plan to fight him eventually? He nodded. Ayumi closed her fan with a soft snap. Then I'll watch that match very closely. And somewhere deeper still, beneath floor 1, beneath even the bedrock of civilization, a shadow stirred. Inside a temple long abandoned, Sister Vesca stood before an altar of black stone. Her arms were outstretched. Candles hissed as invisible winds twisted their flames sideways. All the pieces are moving, she whispered. Let the tower rise. Let the foundations shake. From shadow, we build the truth. Her eyes burned with black-violet flame, and far above her, Zakuro stepped into the ring. To be continued in Chapter 9. Would you like to continue directly into Chapter 9 now, or pause to develop any specific matchups, plot threads, or character arcs first? Absolutely. Here is Chapter 9 of Heaven's Foundation, Fist of the Seven Thrones, continuing directly from the events of Chapter 8, with all suggestions and compiled lore integrated in full detail. Chapter 9, Thunder Without Rain. The cobbled alleyways of Eastern Floor 1 always wore the same foul scent after a downpour, wet soot, rusted piping, and the lingering breath of spilled sake. But this morning was dry, no rain, just the smell of tension. Zakuro crouched under a crooked archway with Emmy and May, the three of them watching a flow of armored enforcers stomp down the path from the direction of the collapsed black market den. Their boots struck the stone like they were marching on graves. Zakuro's jaw tightened. They're not letting this go, Mai whispered, eyes narrowed. Can't blame them, Emmy murmured. That was a sanctioned sweep. Now half the guards are injured or worse. People are talking. I didn't start that fight, Zakuro muttered. No, Emmy replied gently, but you ended it like someone from the upper floors. Zakuro didn't answer. His hands were still bruised from the impact of the last few matches, bone against bone, flesh against fire. Every knuckle throbbed with reminders. In the span of 2 days, he'd been thrown into a world he had no map for, made enemies of people with real power, and been forced to awaken a piece of himself he didn't understand. His max mode. Absolute intellect. It came to him like a scream in silence. His thoughts sharpened, his muscles moved faster than reason, and every strike he landed felt deliberate, terrifyingly deliberate. But afterward, emptiness, like a piece of him was being borrowed by something greater. Somewhere else, floor 7, Eastern Hall of Mirrors. Baronocchi stood in the center of a long, gilded corridor adorned with mirrored pillars and crimson banners. The reflections of his body stretched in all directions, an infinite pattern of himself, barely moving, focused in silence. He had not spoken since returning from floor 1. The battle replayed in his mind again and again. Zakuro's strike, the paralyzing technique, the boy's aura sparking with an untrained yet undeniable max surge. Zakuro wasn't supposed to have that kind of potential. Not without training, not without history, not without bloodlines. But there it was, the lightning, the calculation, the technique. Baron's fist closed tightly at his side. You're still disturbed, said a smooth voice from behind. A gliding figure entered the mirrored corridor, draped in translucent violet silks, Ayumi Tachibana. Baronocchi did not turn to face her. The data does not match the outcome. His power exceeds his context. He's the anomaly, Ayumi said softly, not the error, the anomaly. She touched one of the mirror walls, her fingertips leaving no trace on its perfect surface. And you, Baron, were meant to confront it. It's your duty to fail sometimes. That's the only way to measure him. Baron's eyes sharpened in the reflection. He's not ready for what's coming. No, Ayumi said. Neither are we. Back on floor 1, the slum garden midday. Daigo leaned against the crumbling edge of a water barrel, sipping from his gourd while watching Zakuro fidget with a discarded rice packet. His robe was half open, as usual, one shoulder bare, his beaded bracelet clinking against the wood. You keep pacing, Daigo said lazily. You trying to wear a hole in the ground or punch one? I can't stop thinking about it, Zakuro admitted. What happened in that fight? Daigo lifted an eyebrow. I wasn't thinking. I was just doing. Like I'd been taught moves I never learned. Like someone else was moving my body. That's called instinct. Yours just happens to be dressed in lightning and angry math. Zakuro didn't laugh. Daigo stood, dusting off his sleeves. Your aura's awakened. You're on the path now. No turning back. Your max mode's shown itself, and your body remembers what your mind doesn't. Then teach me, Zakuro said suddenly, eyes burning. If you know what this is, teach me to control it, before it controls me. Daigo stared at him long. The wind shifted. A falling petal from the rooftop garden above drifted slowly between them, curling in the air like a silent omen. All right, Daigo finally said. But you don't get to call yourself a fighter until you've survived the temple grounds. The what now? You'll see. Elsewhere, the rusted courtyard, underside of floor 1. In the deep, forgotten part of the lower city, past the tunnels where the light never reached, Sister Veska knelt in front of a cracked shrine. Her fingers traced ancient symbols burned into the stone, not in ink, but blood long dried into rust. Balance has shifted, she murmured, her voice like a lullaby spoken from inside a cave. The storm child has awakened. From the darkness, several hooded figures knelt. They wore black-robed sashes with the insignia of the Pale Flame, the cult she led from shadow. We'll prepare the next vessel, one of them said. No, she replied, smiling faintly. Let him struggle. Let him grow. The foundation must be whole before it can be broken. She stood slowly. Her aura shimmered faintly, not glowing, but inverting the light around her. Her shadow moved without her. All 7 thrones, she whispered, will kneel before the hollow crown. The final scene. Late night, outside the temple grounds. Zakuro stood barefoot on the edge of a massive stone courtyard carved into the bones of the city itself. High walls surrounded the space, and every inch of it was scarred from battles past. Craters, burn marks, shattered tiles. Above the gate, the faded characters read, Temple Grounds of the Fist Eternal. Daigo stepped beside him. This is where warriors came to carve themselves out of weakness, where they bled before they rose. Zakuro nodded. I'm not scared, he said. But his voice shook. Good, Daigo replied. Then let the earth shape you. Zakuro stepped forward. The wind blew stronger behind him, carrying the voices of the slums, the chants of the upper floors, and the quiet breath of something ancient waiting within. Lightning flickered quietly behind his eyes. To be continued in Chapter 10. Would you like me to continue with Chapter 10 right away? Or dive deeper into any specific element first?